Now I see it. There's God right there. Fellas, I just want to open things up by letting you know, man, hey, man, I freaking love you guys. All right, I just want to say this. All right, I want to take this time. This is our 100th show that we've done. I don't even know if that's accurate.
I don't know.
Is that true?
I have no that can't be true.
Have we reached that, or have we surpassed?
We started in what, July of 21?
You're right. There's only 17.
We've probably done 100.
Yeah, this is and I listen. I just want to throw it
Get them
out
all
there.
off season.
We've got to be at like 150 or something like that.
This is our 150th
4
show.
years in.
This is our 150th show, guys. And as we sit here, man, I just want to say I love you. I didn't know we'd last this long. Right?
We technically didn't.
Yeah, they tried to cancel it,
but listen, we powered through a cancel. I don't even think we missed a show. It's like we've been through so much. We powered through a canceling as a firing, and then we just started it up ourselves. And like, just said, I love you guys. All right, I of course, me and B, all three of us worked in the same building, and I'll be honest, I didn't know if me and BK would work. I really didn't. I didn't know if our styles would mesh. And the first day I knew it fit like a glove. It did, like Gary Payton's glove. And this has been great. So I just want to open it up. I just want to open it up with love. Cheers. God, dog, 2 championships. Man, that's good, man. That's real good.
At least I mean, one of us called at least one of them. So that's good.
And we
never once lost faith.
We've been able to pick each other up. Like, we've been able to work through this. Like, that week, that Raiders loss on Christmas Day nearly killed Brandon. He was done.
No, it did. Yeah, I had to be resuscitated.
Like, that was no. I think at that point, BK was clearly made himself accept this thing is ending early. He, like, at that point, sometimes as a Chiefs fan, you won't make yourself accept it. You want to make yourself accept that they could potentially lose. At that point, I believe BK folded up his blanket and just said, "This thing's over. I know it's over, and I'm not even going to allow myself to get to a place where they can hurt me because I've made clear." And that's all right. But we talked him through that. And all it took was a 7 field goal performance against the Cincinnati Bengals, and he was back. All right. And then when they beat Easton Stick, he was back and ready to go. And there it is, and we've been together ever since.
The other day, I was obviously doubting them in the recent Chiefs game, and put.
Oh, I thought they lost that one too. I thought
there was no way they would win. I thought there was no way they would lose, and then somehow thought there was no way that they could win, and then obviously never had a doubt. So I tweeted out, "Never once a doubt," because obviously, I never doubted them.
I certainly did.
Somebody responded to me with my tweet that I legitimately forgot that I had sent from like last year. And I tweeted, "At this point, I'm okay with the Chiefs missing the playoffs because they need a wake-up call. The teams are not close. They are everything that last year's team was not, and that's not a compliment."
We've learned so much. I
remember that.
I remember it. I did not. Like, I did.
That was the day that Ron muted my game day text.
Yes. I thought that you were always going to be the level-headed one in this thing. Like, maybe during the show you are. Game days, like when you're in it, the swings of emotion that Brandon Kiley takes are just out of control. He's ended the game in the second quarter. I would be I had to mute it that one time. Like, guys, it's the second quarter. It's over, man. We don't have an answer. Like, it is done. I didn't know that was where you were at. I really didn't.
You know the craziest part? I'm like the optimistic one among a few of my friends. Like, we got a group chat, and I'm the one that's like, no, everything's fine.
I believe he's.
So imagine what that group is like, dude. It's wild.
You're the optimistic one. Yeah, I mean, because Brandon will walk. Like, my mom does it. My mom, it's over. She'll quit him. She'll quit in the second quarter. Mom, it's 7-3 in the second quarter. I'm done. Like, what? Anyway, but I will. I do want to go here because we've helped each other along the way, and I may need some help now. I don't like the level of comfort that I have as a fan right now. because Steve and BK, I'm looking at this. The Chiefs have lost Hollywood Brown, who was a weapon that you thought, oh boy, he may do something. Mind you, coming into the year, their most decorated receiver on the team, the one who's done the most experienced wide receiver on the team. Coming in, I'm thinking, whoo, all right, they've lost him. Now for a little bit of time, I'm talking 2-3 months, they will lose him. He's had surgery. That's a pretty big blow. Then Isiah Pacheco. I don't know what they have behind him. Hell, they just had to sign Kareem Hunt, who is somewhere outside of Columbus, just on the streets rolling. They just signed him. He didn't even get his old number. He's got to go 29. They signed him off the streets because they need him, and he might be active. We got, Clyde with his situation. Samaje Perine been here 15 minutes, and the guy who I think is going to get the bulk of the carries, the great white hope, Carson Steele. Like that's where we are. He fumbled last week. They've lost Pacheco, who sometimes I would say isn't the identity of the Chiefs, but he is the guy that has brought that toughness and physicality that this team hasn't had. Like, and there are some cases you could say they're the Miami Dolphins, but they've got a certain level of physicality that 10 brings to the table that we've seen play out the last several years. And he's gone, not just for a little bit, for about 2 months. And my concern level is a little too low for my comfort. My concern level, I saw it, I'm thinking, dang, boy, that's 2 big weapons. They'll be all right. That's where and I'm like, whoa, that's too damn comfortable. That's too comfortable as a Chiefs fan. That I have got to reel that in. My comfort level should, at the very least, even with Andy and Pat, should be at a 5, and I'm sitting here at a 1.5. I'll be honest with you. And I'm just not comfortable with it. Those are 2 major losses. Their left tackle just got pulled from the game because he just couldn't do anything with Hendrickson. And God knows there are better pass rushers than him coming down the pipe. All right, there might be one coming up on Sunday, but I don't know. I'm like, they'll handle it. They'll be all right. Kelsey's got 7 targets on the season. They'll be all right. I'm a little too comfortable how I am as a Chiefs fan with all of these crippling losses.
So the Hollywood Brown thing was one thing, right? Like they could overcome that because we saw last year, like 1 year ago, with a worse group of receivers that were like, I'm not accusing them of doing this, but if you had heard 20 years from now that the Chiefs wide receivers in 2023 were throwing football games, like it would make a lot of sense. It would explain a lot of what we watched last year.
So you're saying you're not completely closing the door on the fact that some of them may have been on the tape.
I'm saying there's a good book to be written. I'm saying there's a good book to be written. And
you're saying you're not 100% certain that some of them weren't on the tape. You're not ready to admit that.
I'm just saying, like, I'm not accusing Kadarius Toney of this because that would be completely unprofessional. But like if somebody wanted to write a really good book and started doing a lot of research as to what specifically took place last season and found out that Kadarius Toney within that research was throwing football games, it again would explain a lot of what we witnessed last year in a way that right now I can't comprehend.
I could be easily sold on that. You're right.
So the reason why the Hollywood Brown thing we're able to be like, you know what, I think they'll find a way is because last year with worse weapons and a younger Rashee Rice that they didn't trust for half of the season, like they found a way. This one to me, Ron, like I'm going to say this on the front end because what I'm about to say is not going to be overly kind to the Chiefs. It's not going to sound like I'm super optimistic. I think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl this year. I think they will eventually overcome this injury. I don't think it's something that will hamper them once he returns. That being said, for the next 6 weeks, I'm really concerned about what this means for the Chiefs offense. Because I do think that we have somehow like come to a place where we actually underrate a certain level of competence at the running back position. Like you have to meet a certain threshold. And once you go below it, like it totally hinders what you're able to do offensively. And I think now, maybe more so than ever, Ron, I'm sure you've seen it. Serda, you have as well. Any of you listening right now, you've probably seen the numbers, right? Passing games have never been worse. Running games are at a level that they haven't been in like 40 years. There's a reason for that. Part of it's too high. Part of it's offensive lines stink across the league. There's a million different reasons. But moral of the story is basically defensive coordinators are really smart. They've adjusted to the high-flying offenses that we had seen for like 15 years across the league, starting in like 07 and then up to the Mahomes years. And they have decided we're not giving you anything more deep. And beyond that, it's not just taking stuff away deep. It's also, this middle of the field stuff that you used to be able to live on, we're taking that away too. So we're giving you all low percentage throws on the outside of the numbers or super short, and you've got to get it consistently. And that goes back to the running game. Isiah Pacheco was the Chiefs' answer for this, man. He last year to finish out the season, 24-15, 24-18 carries. So far this year, 15-19 carries. He is a guy that they can use in any situation. First, second, third down. Want to run zone, want to run power, that guy can do it all. They don't have that in the backfield now, dude. They don't have any one individual running back that can, when he's in the game, the Chiefs could run anything, which means that the defense doesn't know what's coming. Now, if Carson Steele's in, man, he's not running zone. That dude is running at you. That's it. There's nothing else that he's capable of doing at this point in his career. Samaje Perine, he's not much of a threat as a runner, so he's probably in for pass protection. So it's almost a tell that, hey, this play's going to be a pass. Kareem Hunt hasn't been good since 2021. So when you add all of that up, I am genuinely concerned about what this running game is going to look like. And if you don't have a running game with this version of the Chiefs offense, I do think it puts them at risk of not being what we were hoping the offense could be. And it makes these next 4 to 6 weeks a lot more difficult and a lot closer than what we were previously anticipating.
But Serda, I just throw it to you off of that because I think everything you said is fair. But damn, I just have the Andy and Panel figured out. Like maybe that's unfair, but they'll figure it out. And if they got to throw the ball like they did last year or have to throw the ball, whatever, they've got better weapons even without Hollywood. That they'll be. That is where my faith goes so much. After last year, they'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty confident in that too, because even without Isiah Pacheco, I just don't think this offense could possibly be any worse, even without Hollywood Brown. But I do think it's important that we don't understate the importance of the running game with the way NFL defenses are playing right now. Like, it's just not, it's not a way to win right now, just throwing the football 50 times a game. And the way that you're trying to attack a defense is by saying, like, okay, if you're just going to come out like that all the time, then we're just going to take what's available and we're going to try to get the easy yards because that's what we should be doing as an offense. And so I'm not too worried about it because I do like Carson Steele. I still think they could get something out of Isiah Pacheco. I'm with BK. I don't think Kareem Hunt is that good of a player anymore. Like, he's 29 years old. He's got a lot of tread on his tires at this point. But I still have confidence that they'll be able to make it work because I've seen them make it work with far inferior talent than what they have right now. Now, if some other injuries or something stack up, I might start getting a little bit worried. But with Travis Kelce, with Rashee Rice, with Xavier Worthy, I still think there's enough in the passing game that they should be able to get by and figure this thing out offensively with that committee of running backs.
It just changes their margin for error. Like, on the road at Atlanta, this is a tight game, man. It's a 3-point line now in Vegas. I didn't think it was going to get that low, but it has. At Los Angeles, man, that team's going to run at you. And the Chargers always play the Chiefs really well. I know it's a different coaching staff now, but we know how those games go. New Orleans is better than any of us anticipated. At San Francisco, sure as hell ain't going to be easy. You think this left tackle wants to see Crosby going up against him in that game against the Raiders? I don't think that's going to be super fun for this offense. And then you've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that are one of the biggest surprises in the NFL so far this year. That's what your next 6 games look like, that you're going to be without Isiah Pacheco for, most likely. It's not an easy road. And I think they will probably go, 4-2, 5-1, something like that in them. This is not a death knell for this particular team. Most teams it would be, but for them it's not. But it does make me have some more questions. I mean, before the season, Ron, we were talking about, hey, 17-0. This team's capable of that if that's something that they're interested in doing. Now you look at it, it's like, man, 2 of your 4 best weapons offensively are now on the sideline, and you've got a left tackle that the early returns have not been positive for, the offense has some more shakiness to it, some more questions about it than I was willing to have conversations about 2 weeks ago.
Look, I had never said 17-0. I've never in life said 17-0. That is something I have never ever in my life ever thought.
I would have listened to it. I would have listened to your argument.
Am I not? No, I've never been to 17-0. I'd never push that button. But that's fine if you thought that was something that was attainable. I didn't think this team would focus enough to even care to do that. I just think it's a deal of are they going to be able to? No, they didn't care. No, listen, it took them a quarter and a half to get ready for the Bengals. But it's just hey, can this running game be good enough for them? Can Carson, Steele, P. Ryan, Kareem, whoever it is, can it be good enough to be able to complement what they need from the passing game and to score enough? And I just think Andy, Pat, and the crew will be able to put that together. All right, we do this every single week during game week. When the Chiefs have the ball, when the opponent has the ball. Let's start when the Chiefs have the ball. But when the Chiefs have the ball and you said something there, BK, which I think is very, very true, is the margin for error has gone down. When you lose Pacheco along with Hollywood Brown, like it goes down. You're now trying to trust less talented people and people who are less experienced. Now, Watson has experience, but Steele and that guy coming in and having to be maybe the guy who gets the most snaps at the running back position, that is not ideal. And so when I go with this, and I know this may be hard for some of you who are listening right now on this Friday or whatever day you're listening to this, Patrick Mahomes has to pick up his play. And he cannot just make costly decisions because the margin for error is different now. All right. I don't know that this team can just withstand him throwing careless, ridiculous interceptions that you wouldn't expect any, like you would let any quarterback have it. Rookie, third string, second string. He's thrown, about 2 this year that were just ridiculous. The one at the end of the half that made the Ravens game a lot closer than it needed to be. And then this one where I don't know if he was just hell-bent on forcing that ball to Travis. I don't know what it was, but that was never there. That's a terrible, terrible decision. The kid on my son's football team, listen, I just believe Jackson can't make that throw. You've got to read that. So that was terrible. He can't do that now. He has got to. I'm not saying that he can't take chances. Like, I know we were texting through. I didn't love during the moment the pick he threw that, Taylor Britt made the amazing interception on, because, I like me, I in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, Worthy's just going to go up and just high point a ball and go get it. I don't love that, but I can at least take that one. That was at least a 50-50 ball where you're trying to give your receiver a chance to make a play. The other ones, they're just awful. They're just bad. They're just bad decisions. And Patrick Mahomes, again, like last year, has, to me, gotten off to a slow start for what his expectations are. And now, I do, however, think this helps his MVP case. If you lose Pacheco and you lose Hollywood Brown, and he has to play with what people would perceive lesser weapons than it would be, and now people now think that Father Time has grabbed Travis Kelce. Like, this helps his MVP situation, but he can't hurt his team. He's already thrown 3 picks, and 2 of them have just been horrific, and could have cost his team. So he's got to pick it up. He's got to pick it up because they can't. I don't know if they'll be able to withstand these mistakes and keep winning games against a lot of the opponents that you've just spoken about coming up.
Would you guys like to play a game known as Who Leads the NFL in Turnover Percentage so far this year?
No, but I'd like to hear it, though.
It's the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs have turned the ball over on 21% of their offensive possessions so far this year, the top rate in the entire NFL. Their defense, for context, has turned the ball over 10% of the time, and that's like a middle of the pack type of rate. So the Chiefs are twice that offensively, which is obviously not a good place to be. And a lot of that is coming from these Patrick Mahomes interceptions, man. And two of them are just egregious. The one, like the Cam Taylor-Britt one, it's an unbelievable play. You're trying to push the ball down the field. I'm not going to criticize him too much for that one. The other two were flat out bad. They're across the middle. You don't see the linebackers. And it's just like, dude, you cannot make those throws. And beyond that, there's a couple other things that are bothering me a little bit about Mahomes. And he's been pretty good for the most part, but there are a few things that are just kind of, this is Mahomes we're talking about, and so the standard is higher, right? He's not taking some of the chances that are there. And I think part of why that's happening is because he's staying so long and trying so hard to get Travis Kelce involved. And Ron, I know this is just a place that like the two of us are kind of diverging on, but I think we have officially arrived at the Travis Kelce is just here for you on third downs, big third downs, the red zone, and more specifically, playoffs. That's what he's here for. Your innings eater this season for a pass catcher, it's Rashee Rice, dude. In Travis Kelce's last 11 regular season games, he has 49 catches on 69 targets for 498 yards and 1 touchdown. That's his last 11 regular season games. That's a pace of like 700 yards a season. He's just right now not the same guy that he was. And for whatever reason, their connection this year has not been on point. So let's get Xavier Worthy a little bit more involved. Let's continue to push the ball to Rashee Rice, who is very clearly your most dynamic weapon across the middle. Even if you want to say Kelce is more consistent, Rashee Rice right now is a more dynamic option for them in the passing game. I think those are some of the things that if Mahomes eliminates those terrible turnovers and he starts trusting his other weapons more than he is right now, I think he's going to be fine. But so far this year, it's been a little bit of a sluggish start to the season.
Yeah, we can talk about Kelce because listen, I'm not ready to give up the thought that Kelce can't still be a great player. And it may not be. He may not be that great player anymore. That may be true, and what you said may be true. For me, is I just don't even think there's been enough involvement. Now, he's got 7 targets in 2 games, right? And yes, that interception seemed like a forcing of it. I just believe that those brains and those people in there can put their heads together to at least get him involved. Like, to me, an early screen, something like those things, something to get the ball in his hands. And I think it is very important, fellas, because I think he is the emotional leader of this team. And I think when he is involved and he is being Trav and the first down markers and showing, I think there's something. And listen, we talked about it earlier. Serda lost his damn mind on the post-game show and just really, really let it cut away from him. But like to me, I know it's still in there. The play that got called back was an explosive play that he made where he got down the field, and that's a 40-plus play until whatever Trey Hendrickson forced somebody to do to him. But I think that guy is still there. I think they just need to make a more concerted effort, and he's got to play better. He said it on his New Heights podcast, but they got to make more of a concerted effort to get him involved. And that, to me, if I see that they're making a concerted effort to get him involved, then maybe I'll come more to your side. I do think, obviously, Rashee Rice has taken this up a notch. And again, I still think, BK, that Rashee Rice is being affected by still people having the fear of Travis Kelce. I said this to Serda, that touchdown that he got was in cover 2, but that safety just said, to hell with it. I'm not going to continue to just really do what my keys are. I see 87 screaming up the field. I'm going to come up, even though I'm supposed to have this half of the field. And that helped Rashee Rice get open. Rashee Rice in the first game of the year, against the Ravens was eaten all because the coverage was going. I mean, Kyle Hamilton wasn't even called because he and a linebacker were bracketing Travis Kelce the whole time. But we've seen that teams try to do that to him anyway, and he's more productive than 4 catches for 39 damn yards.
And
So
that's my point, really, is like I just think I think he's still a really good football player. And we saw this last year, right? Like we saw early in the season, we had the conversation of, is Rashee Rice now the number 1 target for the Chiefs? I think there will come a point in time where Kelce becomes that again. And I think that point in time is the postseason. But right now, while you're in the regular season, while these games don't have the same kind of importance, I think they do need to shift the focus of the offense a bit to utilizing Kelce in the way that he has been in the first couple of games, which is, hey, man, you are a threat that every team has to be aware of. And because of that, you have this gravity that we always talk about with like Steph Curry in the NFL, right? Or in the NBA. Defenders are going to pull towards that player because of what his history is, because they don't want him to beat them. Well, now utilize that to your advantage as an offense and get Xavier Worthy more involved, get Rashee Rice more involved. I think you can utilize it to make the other guys around them better. And I think they did to a large degree in week 1. I don't think we saw that very much in week 2 against Cincinnati. Some of that is, man, Lou is so freaking good at his job. Like, God, that guy's good. And he made it really hard on the Chiefs. But some of it is also they're still kind of trying to force it to Kelce, even when it's not a target to him. I think they're just staying on that read a little bit too long sometimes.
And I do think that that there's something to the idea that he is just kind of this critical moments in the game, postseason version of himself. And I totally agree that like the explosive version of him is still there. I just don't think he can do that on an every snap basis anymore. I think that's why it does seem like they kind of save those moments for the critical moments of the game. And now they actually have other people that they can lean on, where in the post Tyreek Hill era of the Chiefs, they didn't really have that guy outside of that. Juju was kind of that, but Juju wasn't a number 1 wide receiver. Like, he was just a reliable target for Patrick Mahomes. Last year, they just straight up didn't have a reliable target outside of Travis Kelce prior to like week 11 when they started utilizing Rashee Rice. So I just, he's going to have big games, and I think he is still a very good player. I just think that we have to accept at this stage of his career that he's just not the type of guy that the Chiefs are looking to give 12 to 15 targets a game to anymore, like we saw him get at his peak.
No, listen, I'm not. First of all, I don't have to accept a damn thing, to be honest with you. And second, listen, I'm not even saying that he has to be the guy that is getting 40-yard catches like he had that was called back all the time. I don't think the Chiefs' offense can nearly perform to the level it needs to, and damn sure without Hollywood Brown and Isiah Pacheco, if there's no involvement whatsoever with Travis. This is a no involvement. But this is that boy's got 39 yards on 7 targets. It'd be one thing, like it'd be a telling thing if, hey man, that man's got 4 catches for 39 yards on 22 targets in the first 2 games. That's not what it is. He's not getting the ball. They try to get him on a carry. Like to me, he just has to be a threat and involved in this thing. And I don't expect him to be the Travis of 4 years ago. But to me, 5-6 catches, 60 yards, and the occasional 100-yard game. Like, to me, I still think that's in him. And right now, I mean, it looks like, well, we may have 2 more games before he can get to 60.
Yeah. I think it's in him. I think he's going to have those kinds of games that you're talking about. I just think, like, you can't try to force it. I mean, remember back to last season, it was kind of similar. Now he's getting more targets than he is right now, but early on in the season, it took him a little bit to be able to really become the same version of himself that we remembered him to be. He was also hurt at the time, but I just don't think he looks the same out there either. So I think there's a lot of reasons as to why he hasn't produced.
Yeah, those are things we said. I mean, it was similar things we said last year at different parts of the year. He doesn't look like himself until he turned it on. But if you look at it last year, he was still just short of 1,000 yards and he missed 2 regular season games. Like, that's not to the – but Like right now, he doesn't look like he's going to be an 800-yard receiver. And I think that is doable. And that's the other part. It's not that he's not getting snaps. He's out there. Like he's playing a lot of the snaps. It's not like he's on a pitch count. He's playing a lot of snaps. It's just not coming his way. All right. I think even as important, I think to me still offensively, the most important thing in the game is getting Travis Kelce going. I do think that is something that I think is just energy that the team needs. But right behind it is what's happening at left tackle? What they gonna do at left tackle? Because the last time we synced them, and that's with a T, the last time we synced them, Kingsley was benched. I would just like to say on Kingsley's behalf, there could be some help. There could be some help given to that young man before he got sent his ass to the bench. Like Isiah Pacheco, I know you're hurt right now. If you're gonna go out there and chip, go chip. Don't just go run near him and then run your pass route and not help him. But Wanye Morris not only caught a touchdown pass, but he was in the game at the end when they won. And that is the interesting question. Who is going to be the left tackle moving forward in this game? That's the big question.
I think they go back to Kingsley. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this, and we can kind of break it down a little bit further. But who do you guys think starts at left tackle in this one on Sunday night? They have not officially announced it yet.
I hope it's Kingsley, man. I do. Like, I just think there was a reason why you felt he should have the job from the jump. And you put a really, really good pass rusher over there and you just left him alone. Right. And I hope that everything that has occurred, allows him to have that opportunity back.
Yeah. I feel like Kingsley, and yes, he was awful last week against Trey Hendrickson, who has demolished Chiefs tackles for years now. But I think that he's put enough good on tape that you got to keep rolling that guy out there, because why was the leash so short? Like, I don't think that against an inferior pass rusher last week, like, I don't think Kingsley gets pulled from that game. I think they threw him into the fire and said, this is what you got to prepare for. Like, we can't have you making mistakes. You got to learn fast, and we need you to improve on the fly. And so I think some of that was just like, okay, let him go take his lumps. And then it was just so bad that they were like, okay, let's get him out of there, because we might do some damage to him psychologically if we keep letting Trey Hendrickson just absolutely dismantle him. But for a young player that was a raw prospect coming in the NFL, I hope that it was a good learning experience for him and that he grows from it, and he should be the starting left tackle on Sunday night.
And Ron, I had the same reaction as you did last week when they were continuously throwing him out there and not giving him help and not giving him help and not giving him help. And then finally they did. And it was like, it kind of felt half-assed in terms of the help that they were giving him. And then I saw the Schwartz brothers on Twitter kind of explaining what the Chiefs' philosophy is on that. And they
don't like to.
They philosophically do not believe in giving help, especially this early in the season, to their tackles. They want to find out, what can we get away with now, so that way they learn as the season goes along. Here's where we need to help. Here's what we can and what we can't get away with. And then, like, because they don't really practice that way, it's really hard to make those adjustments in game to be able to give the kind of help that we were talking about. So that's why you make the switch to Wanye. That being said, like, this week is not the same kind of difficult matchup as it was last week. We all knew going in, hey, Trey Hendrickson is going to be a nightmare scenario for Kingsley. This dude is as good with his technique as any defensive end in the NFL. He's a pro's pro. And, oh, by the way, he's unbelievably productive, regardless of if he's going up against a rookie second round pick or not. Matthew Judon's good. He's really good. He's not the same level as Trey Hendrickson of, like, making you look silly. So if you don't figure it out this week, he'll get himself a couple of sacks, but I don't think it will be the same kind of consistent pressure that Hendrickson was able to get on Mahomes last week. So either way that they go, they should be in a better spot than they were last week against Trey Hendrickson and that Bengals D-line.
Yeah, I just hope the kid gets a shot back. That to me, he won the job, and it can't just be that quick that he's going. All right. When the Falcons get the ball, before we get into kind of the nuts and bolts of this particular matchup. I just want to, because I get the sense with Spags' defense, because I think there needs to be credit there. I get the sense with Spags' defense that we're starting to do, and you've made this, I think, very, very popular, BK, that we're starting to kind of treat this defense the way that a lot of people talk about Nick Bolton. And you've said this a lot. A lot of people just talk about the things that are deficiencies for Nick Bolton. Like a lot of people talk, oh, he can't cover just talk about how, but when you get done with it, like Nick Bolton, however you slice it, is a top 10 to 5 middle linebacker. He's a guy that always you look at it and he is a major help to this defense. And I feel like we are a lot talking about the deficiencies, and they're valid. They're there. Like, I don't know how many more Joshua Williams snaps I have with me. All right, that linebacker core, yes, I know. Tight ends have crushed him. I feel like we are talking a lot about the negatives that they can shore up, that they need to shore up. But damn, man, this group to me is a lot closer. And this is just 2 weeks, but I felt it again. They're a lot closer to the group and the team of defense that we saw last year. And I didn't think that was going to be the case. And hell, early, they looked to be a little bit more opportunistic than this group. It's Shamari Connor picking that ball up, and they forced that turnover, which I think was the game. This offense, obviously, we talked about Mahomes and his 3 interceptions already, and it seems like damn near all of them put them in short fields, have put the defense in short fields where it's, forced them to give up points. Carson Steele with a fumble that also did the same thing. I think the offense has put them in bad situations that added to the point total in the last couple of games, but they give up 20 to the Ravens, and that's with 2 turnovers in that game, or at least a turnover where Mahomes sets them up for points at the end of the half. And then this last game, multiple turnovers, which set them up. This defense is coming along on a lot better and a lot further pace than I thought at this point. And yes, they have deficiencies, but it feels like we hear a lot about that. It feels like we're hearing a lot about that and not really looking at, man, this group is really, really good again.
And I think the reason why is because of their successes a year ago. Like, that was a rarity with Steve Spagnuolo that last year, Ron, you remember, it was weird because they came out and it was like, oh, this defense is amazing starting week 1. And that's different than what it typically is with Spags.
Yeah,
typically what you see is it kind of starts out a little clunky. They're good, but not great. And you can see some deficiencies. And then as the season goes along, they're just on this steady incline. And then boom, they crescendo as you get closer to the postseason. And then he puts together just all-time great game plans once you get to the playoffs. But you're absolutely correct on their offense putting them into some bad situations. They had an interception in week 1 against the Ravens that set them up 10-play, 44-yard field goal drive. Last week against the Bengals, 7-play, 31-yard touchdown drive off of an interception. And then a 6-play, 16-yard field goal drive coming off of a fumble. That's 13 points directly off of Chiefs' offensive turnovers. You look at it, that's like a third of the points that they've given up so far this season. That's not an insignificant amount. This defense is being put into some really tough situations. And I mean, I mentioned 2 of those 3 drives are field goal drives. So it's not as if they're going out there and just giving up touchdown drives all day long. They've been pretty good. They just haven't lived up to the expectations of their own doing from last year. And I think that's why people are so down on them right now, is it's not an all-time great defense like we saw a year ago.
Yeah, but I mean, you lose L'Jarius Sneed and Willie Gay, and you lose some parts. I mean, the expectation is they do go down. I am shocked that already it feels like they're a lot closer to that group than you thought. Like, you look up at it, yes, these tight ends have been killing them the last 2 games. But you look up, Jamar Chase ain't really done nothing in this game, and that's the guy you had to stop, and you had plenty of different coverages on him. Zay Flowers was all right, but didn't really kill you. Mark Andrews didn't really kill you. It was likely. You look up, and these teams are scoring 20 points and 25 points with the help of turnovers from the Chiefs offense to put them in bad situations where these scores could be under 20 in both of these games. When you look up, and you can't ask for defenses to do much better than that.
And to
right
your
now.
point on that, Ron, we talk all the time about stars got to be stars, right? Chris Jones has been amazing. And Trent McDuffie has taken his play from last year and gone even another step up. He had one, and it wasn't even a bad play. It was just, hey, he let Zay Flowers beat him. Zay Flowers is going to do that against a lot of dudes. Got 19 yards on that play Zay Flowers did. And you all remember it was that crossing route beginning of the season. After that route, Zay Flowers finished the game 5 catches the rest of the day for 18 yards. 5 catches for 18 yards for Zay Flowers. You mentioned it. Mark Andrews, 2 catches for 14 yards. Last week, Jamar Chase, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, dude. A guy coming off of a bad opening week as well. And so you just knew coming in, the Bengals are going to do everything they can to get him involved in the offense. 4 for 35 with a long of 13. So their stars are showing out. They do have some issues. Like you mentioned the tight end numbers. Oh boy, is it ugly, man. 21 catches through 2 weeks for 245 yards and a touchdown. They are getting torched by like Mike Gesicki. That's not what you want to have happen as a defense. But if that's your biggest flaw right now, I have a feeling Spags is going to find a way to kind of mask that thing over time. They're going to be just fine. This is a good defense. They're just not quite great yet.
Yeah. And I guess there's reasons to gripe about the defense. Like Joshua Williams was a disaster last week. Jalen Watson, after an amazing week 1, had some bad moments last week. Jamari Connor's been a little bit up and down, even though I still have all the faith in the world in him and what he has done so far through 2 games for the Chiefs. There's going to be some growing pains because they have a lot of young players back there still, and they're still figuring out how to like Trent McDuffie has been a star since day 1, and then L'Jarius Sneed is a superstar corner, and L'Jarius Sneed is still looking really good for the Tennessee Titans so far through 2 games. They lost a really important piece of that secondary, and they lost some other depth pieces that we knew were going to have an impact. But I still have been overall really impressed with the Chiefs defense. It is not something that it's not like you could say last season is the reason that the Chiefs got to the Super Bowl because the defense was so special. And I truly believe that. This season, you could come into it thinking maybe the defense is going to be a liability. I think it's far, far away from actually being a liability in any way. I think this defense is still legitimately good, and you can lean on them in critical moments when you have to.
Listen, you read off those numbers with tight ends, and there's no way to deny it. But is there an argument of that's what they're deciding to give up in these particular matchups? Because as we've gone through it, the number one thing in the game, at least if you're telling me the number one thing in the game, I could argue is Mark Andrews. And if it isn't Andrews, it's Derrick Henry. The top 3 things: Derrick Henry, Mark Andrews, and Zay Flowers. And they held those 3 in check pretty good. And then likely was what they had to give up. The second game, Jamar Chase. Not going to let him beat us. And he couldn't and didn't. And a lot of their routes, and we heard Tony Romo's weird ass saying it, a lot of their routes were tight ends running routes off of Jamar Chase, and that created some things to give up. So I wonder in games where the tight end is the major threat, if we see that look different. So I understand the tight end thing. They've got to fix that. But I wonder, is there some explanation to why those guys are getting off, especially when we look at the primary guys that you would think aren't?
I think there has to be. There has to be more to this than just hey, they're bad against tight ends now. Because you look at it, this defense didn't have a tight end problem last year. And it's not as if they lost personnel that would have completely altered their ability to cover.
We love their safeties.
Their safeties are the same as they were last year, and they added to the group. They're maybe better in that area. Their linebackers, the one guy that they lost was Willie Gay. And for all of the positives that we can say about Willie Gay, and I think he's a good player, and I do think they miss him right now, I don't think it's against tight ends in coverage. He's a guy that you miss because of his ability to flow sideline to sideline. And then at corner, you miss L'Jarius Sneed. And I think maybe that's the biggest thing here, Ron, is I wonder if we're just seeing how there are some limitations to calling a defense without those two elite level corners that just flat out didn't exist last year. And almost no defensive coordinator in the NFL has that luxury, but last year Spags did. And we got to see like the best version of the Steve Spagnuolo defense because everything was at his disposal on every play because he had two corners that could lock up whoever it was that was opposite them. I think they're running a little bit less man coverage because of that this year. They don't want to put those young corners on as much of an island, and it's leading to some issues that they have in the flats and against these tight ends. They'll figure out how to make this go away. I wonder if Jaden Hicks can maybe be a part of that plan. He's played one coverage snap so far this year. It sounds like they're expecting to get him more involved this week. They're going to have some answers. It'll be really interesting to me to see what those answers look like.
Hey, just to throw this out here before we get to the game that's sweeping the nation. This is one, even with everything they have, this is one that, and everything we saw at the end of the Falcons-Eagles game last week, this is still one where you want the ball in Kirk Cousins' hands, right? Like, this is one where you want to force Kirk Cousins to beat you. Right, like are we still in that thought process? I think Kirk is a good quarterback, not a great quarterback, and like there's some quarterbacks on the schedule. Like I want to make Derek Carr beat me. I want to make some of these like, we're that. That's the best plan of attack, right? Is to make Kirk Cousins be the one to beat you.
Yes, easy. He did not look good in week 1, but then in week 2, like. He looked better. He was moving around a little bit better, but he still wasn't really like moving off of his spot a lot to like get throws off until late in the game when it was like do or die. And so it's just, he's got such limited mobility. And I still think that, draft profiles are carrying a lot of weight for players like Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Darnell Mooney and like these pass catchers. Like, I just think that you absolutely want the Falcons to have to throw the ball because Kirk Cousins, I think he's still a solid quarterback, but I don't think that Kirk Cousins is totally the same player.
I'm totally with you. Yeah, I don't want Bijan beating me in this game, man. And I know
he scares the hell out of me, man.
He hasn't been the guy that maybe a lot of people thought he was going to be coming into the NFL, but I think it's kind of, there's some Saquon vibes here where like at any given time, that dude could have like a 200-yard game. And the next 3 weeks, he might go for 100 yards from scrimmage in each of them and like just kind of be good, but not elite. This is one of those games where he could go off. And so I would be picking my poison, and you've got to have something that you're going to give up. I would be more likely to give stuff up to Kirk Cousins than I would be to Bijan. That's the guy that scares me. But here's the question, like, how do you take Bijan Robinson away in the passing game? Because that's where he can really hurt you. And this team, like I have been so disappointed so far this year. Yeah, there's that's part of it. I've been really disappointed by what we've seen from Drew Tranquil so far this year. I loved the way that he played last season, and I thought he helped them out a ton in coverage, especially against running backs. Man, I do not think he looks the same this year. Like he's just not making as many plays. So maybe this is the week that he gets himself right and he becomes the answer there. But I don't know that the Chiefs have a good way to take away a guy like Bijan Robinson in the passing game, especially.
That's the part. If that, I almost think, hell, you got to put a safety on him. Like, if you can, you might have to change. I don't know how doable that is, but yeah, he is the only one that really frightens me. That really makes me, because it's just him to the matchup, because if it's linebackers, there ain't one that I believe has the physicality to stay with them. But to me, it's pressure. You have got to get pressure on him and on Kirk Cousins because hell, he ran for 90 yards last week against the Eagles. So that's what it is to me. But this is a Kirk, man, you got to beat us, and if you do, you tip your cap off to him. But you don't have to be like Vic Fangio and just allow him to go down. They had 34 seconds to play with after they scored that touchdown. They got down there in 3 plays. It's just insane how terrible that was. All right, sir, to go ahead and grab my music for me. The segment that is sweeping the nation, a little certified or imposter. Hey, it's week 3. I say a statement, and we figure out, is it certified or imposter? All right, Steve, I'll let you jump on this first. This is it, certified or imposter. The Atlanta Falcons have the best weapons that the Chiefs have played so far this season. 3 weeks in, the Atlanta Falcons have the best set of weapons that the Chiefs have played this season.
Like overall, I guess. No, I'm gonna say imposter. I don't buy it. I've never been big on like I see the physical tools with Kyle Pitts, but I don't know if it's injuries or just situation or whatever. It doesn't feel like he's the same kind of player that he was coming out of college, just 4 years into his career. So like I'm not buying the Kyle Pitts stuff. And then Drake London, I was just like never really that high on as a player. Like he's a really big bodied wide receiver that doesn't get a ton of separation. So he's supposed to win with jump balls. Like he's like Mike Williams kind of. And like I just don't envision him being like this true like elite NFL wide receiver that he's always been billed as. And Bijan's an incredible player, but I would still take Jamar Chase over any of these Falcons players. And so if Bijan's the only one that I actually believe is a legitimate star, then I'm going to say imposter.
I'm going to say certified, and I'm going to say certified because it is the deepest group of weapons, and I think that is what poses the greatest risk to the Chiefs defense. If you have one wide receiver, the Chiefs can take that away, man. Yep. Trent McDuffie can take away any number one wide receiver in the NFL right now. Like, I truly believe that. I think he's that good as a cornerback eraser. Like, you go up against San Francisco. If they don't have Debo back, he can take away Brandon Ayuk from them. You go up against New Orleans. If you need somebody to take away Chris Olave, I think he can do that for you. At Tampa Bay, he could take away like Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, whoever you prefer. It's that second guy, that second big-time receiving weapon and a running back that ends up scaring me. Atlanta's really deep in that regard. They have 2 or 3 wide receivers that can beat you. They have a tight end in Kyle Pitts who on any given day can have a good one, even though I think Serda's right. I think at this point he's not the same athlete that he was when he first got into the NFL. And then Bijan just absolutely terrifies me as just this athletic freak that can do anything in the backfield. So I think they very clearly have the best weapons that you've gone up against. I would not be saying this if the Bengals had their full grouping, but they didn't have T. Higgins. So with him out last week, I think this is the best weapons that the Chiefs have gone up against thus far.
Yeah, I think the Bengals aren't even in it just because, I mean, they had Chase, they had Moss, and who else? Right? They didn't have
really their next best weapon, and Gesicki's like a cast-off tight end.
This is between the Ravens and the Falcons, right? And now if you include Lamar in as a weapon, I think maybe you could slide in the Ravens because hell, he was their next running back. But like Likely and Andrews are really, really good. And Zay Flowers is good with Henry. But to me, yeah, Bijan Robinson, Mooney is a pretty good receiver. We saw what he did last week. Drake London, a big-bodied receiver. Kyle Pitts and Algier, that their backup running back. He is really, really solid too, and can go like when they are really successful, and when they were really successful at time last year, like both of them at times would be moving, would be going, and sometimes it's one in the passing game, one in the running game, and they've been able to kind of do things like that. So I would say it is certified with Atlanta. All right, predictions. BK, kick us off. What's the prediction for this Sunday night football game?
I think this is one of those that's a sneaky, interesting matchup, man. I think that the Falcons are going to be able to get theirs a little bit offensively in this one because I don't think that the Chiefs have a ton of answers for the kind of weapons that they have at this point in the regular season. I would feel differently if this was a November game than it being in September. So I think it ends up being really close. I think it ends up being a little bit more high scoring than a lot of people are anticipating right now, probably. I'd say it ends up being a 37-27 win for the Kansas City Chiefs on the road in Atlanta. Chiefs win. Feels tight throughout, though.
I'll go here, Steve. You'll get the best for last, or the best hair for last. I think this is tighter and a little lower scoring.
Did I say 37, by the way? 30 to 27. Excuse me.
30 to 27. I was going to say that's a 10-point game, but 37. I think it's a little lower scoring, a little tighter. I mean, the Falcons, they have not. I mean, they were sitting there with 15 points until Vic Fangio allowed them, and then they scored 10 against the Steelers. Like, I think they will obviously be charged up. I think they will play at a certain intensity level that is not the same as they did the last time they were at home against the Steelers. But I do think the Chiefs win this. And listen, until I see it, I'm not cured. I don't think they're cured of their red zone issues as they're kicking field goals at the damn one. So I think
stop that, Andy. Stop doing that, Andy.
Oh, I know that took.
He's not going to stop doing that.
Butker, I think it's going to be involved. I think the Chiefs do win. I'm going to say we're looking at 23-17. 23-17. Chiefs win Sunday night.
Yeah, I part of me wanted to pick this to be a high scoring game because I don't think that Atlanta is a particularly overall talented team that needs to be feared. I think they're a perfectly average NFL team, and maybe Kirk Cousins will get more healthy as the season goes on and they'll take another step or whatever. But their secondary does have some players like Jesse Bates and AJ Terrell are both really talented members in their secondary. And then they bring in Matthew Judon and beef up that pass rush a little bit. Their defense has played pretty well, even though one of the games was against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then the other one was the Philadelphia Eagles without AJ Brown. So they're missing a star player, but for the most part, their defense has played pretty well so far through 2 games. So I'm not ready to just buy into the Chiefs being able to drop 35 points or something, but I still think that they win this one. And I don't think that it is particularly close. So I'm going to pick the Chiefs 27-17.
All right, there we go. Hopefully they can get to 3-0 and put a good showing out there for old Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth, huh? How about that? All right, show 150 down in the books. We are out.